Hi, everybody. So I'm going to take you through the prologue of Romeo and Juliet. You should have open your worksheet as well. Our goal here is to understand what's going on in this Shakespearean sonnet and then use some of our paraphrasing skills to put it into modern English. Now, it's important that you work on practicing this on your own rather than just going to No Fear Shakespeare and copying what they have, because the more you get used to this language, the easier it's going to be when you're dissecting bigger scenes and when you're dealing with Shakespeare later on. So, because it is a sonnet, it has 14 lines, it's an iambic pentameter, and it follows our A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G rhyme scheme. So, we are going to dissect this just like we did all of the poems in our poetry unit. So, first things first, we need to find the punctuation. So, I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight that. You can do the same thing in your assignment. This is going to help us figure out where our sentences are, clarify what's going on, make it as clear as possible. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to go through and do that. And I'm going to do the same thing. All right, so I have all of the punctuation in here highlighted in yellow. So that's going to help me when I'm doing my paraphrasing because I can break down where my sentences are in case I get confused. The next thing we need to do is identify words that we are not super familiar with so that when we're reading through it, we aren't tripped up by those words. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight a couple that I think you might have trouble with. If you have others, just shoot them into Google, see what you can figure out. So I want you to go through, look for those words that you are struggling with. I'm going to highlight the ones that I think you might. So I've gone through and in pink are some of the words that I know people struggle with sometimes, so I'm just going to go through those with you. So dignity, meaning the way that someone feels about themselves or their respect, the way other people look at them in society. Grudge is something you hold against someone, so something that you're mad about that you're not going to forgive them for. Mutiny is a sailing term, but in this case, they're talking about breaking out into a new fight or a new brawl. Civil means an everyday person, like civilian. Loins are referring to your legs at this point and looking more at like reproductive organs, but making it more polite. Foes are enemies. Piteous is meaning something that deserves pity. Doth just means do. Death marked is meaning that they are fated to die, which we talked a little bit about in our notes from earlier this week. Continuance just means a continuation of. Not is nothing. Traffic of our stage is a term that they're using here to talk about people acting things out. Attend means to pay attention to. And strive means attempting to do something. We are hoping to do this. So, next thing we need to do is we need to read it out loud and we need to listen to it because that's going to help you understand what's going on here before we move into the paraphrasing, which is what you're going to try to do on your own. So, first time through. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage. The which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. Time 1. All right, we're going to do it one more time, and I want you to listen carefully. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage. The which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. I'll see you in part 2. Welcome to part 2, everyone. So what we've done so far is we have identified our punctuation, we've identified tricky words, and then we've gone through and we've read it twice. So what we want to do now is we want to move into paraphrasing and figuring out what's actually going on with this language. So what we're going to do together is we're going to go through the first couple of lines, actually the first sentence, which is the first 4 lines of the poem, and we're going to take the Shakespearean English and turn it into more modern English so we have a clear idea of what's going on. Your goal then is going to be to paraphrase the rest of the poem on your worksheet and answer the questions below. As always, reach out to your teachers. We're happy to help you out when you need it. But let's go through a couple lines together. So we're going to start off with 2 households, alike in dignity. Now, 2 households. When I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, do they mean the buildings people are living in, or what could household otherwise mean? Well, in this case, a household means a family. So I would say 2 families, and then both alike in dignity. Now, we define dignity as the way that you look at yourself and the way other people look at you. So I'm going to say that these families that are similar, so both alike in respect and reputation. And then that line is paraphrased. And then I'll move on to the next one, which is in the same sentence. So, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. So, we'll start off with our first phrase, in fair Verona. So, in, fair often means beautiful, so that's what I'm going to use. In beautiful Verona, which we know from our notes is where the story takes place, which is also what that next line means, where we lay our scene. So where our story takes place. When we're talking about laying a scene, it means the actors setting up a scene on stage. So you could also say something like that in your paraphrase. All right, next line. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny. Alrighty, so this one is a little trickier, so we got to break it down into chunks. So let's start with from ancient grudge. So we're just going to use the word from, because that's an easy one. Ancient meaning very old, so from a very old. Grudge meaning disagreement, fight, something that you hold against someone. So I'm going to say from a very old disagreement, because we don't actually know why the 2 families are fighting, but they have some grudge against each other. They've disagreed in the past. They fought in the past. Break to new mutiny. So from our very old disagreement, mutiny we said is like a fight or a brawl. So I'm going to say break to new. To me, that sounds like a fight breaking out. And since it's a new fight from something old, we could say from a very old disagreement begins a new fight. So far, if we're looking at our paraphrases, we have 2 families that are similar in respect and reputation in beautiful Verona, where our story takes place. From an old disagreement begins a new fight. And then the last line, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean, ending our first sentence. So, as we defined earlier, civil means like civilian, ordinary person. They have the same root. So we're civil blood. So we're going to say where ordinary, civilians are ordinary people, where ordinary people's blood makes civil hands unclean. Okay, so we have the blood making hands unclean, and it's the same blood. So if we're making hands unclean, that means it's probably spilled. So where ordinary people's blood is spilled by other ordinary people. So now what I've done is I've paraphrased the first couple of lines of the prologue of Romeo and Juliet. Now the grammar is not perfect, and that's totally okay. We're just trying to understand what's going on here. So it's your turn to try it out on your own.